Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something super high stakes and honestly, highly stressful for anyone going through it. Texas firearm theft accusations. If you or someone you know is staring down this kind of charge, I know the legal landscape can feel totally overwhelming. The state of Texas takes firearms incredibly seriously, and the laws around them, well, they're strict and they are unforgiving. But hey, knowledge is power, right? In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what this law actually means, the severe penalties you could be facing, and most importantly, the constitutional rights you have to defend yourself. We're strictly looking at the facts today to make this complex legal topic a whole lot easier to digest. Here is our game plan for today. We'll start with 1, the firearm theft charge. Then 2, penalties and real consequences. 3, your legal rights explained. 4, building a legal defense. And finally, 5, next steps and action plan.
All right, Section 1, the firearm theft charge.
So what exactly is theft of a firearm? It sounds like a super simple question, right? But in the legal world, words have very specific meanings. Let's just cut right through the confusion and look at exactly how the state defines this act.
Here's the core definition. Basically, it's unlawfully taking or appropriating someone else's firearm with the intent to deprive the owner of it. That last part is the real kicker here, intent to deprive. That's the legal linchpin of the whole charge. It's not about accidentally grabbing the wrong bag at the shooting range. It's about a deliberate, conscious intent to take someone else's property and keep it from them.
Now let's shatter a huge myth right now. You know how with most types of theft, the severity of the crime, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, depends entirely on the dollar value of what was stolen? Yeah, not with firearms. In Texas, whether the gun is a beat-up $200 antique or a custom $3,000 competition rifle, the charge carries the exact same weight. It is strict across the board, no matter the price tag.
When an allegation is made, investigators don't just look at the end result. They actually work backward. They're going to immediately ask 4 crucial questions to build their case. First, who legally owned it? Second, exactly how did the accused get their hands on it? Third, was there that specific intent to deprive the owner that we just talked about? And finally, what hard evidence actually supports these claims?
Moving on to Section 2, penalties and real consequences. We mentioned a second ago that the value doesn't matter and that it's treated as a felony. Specifically under Texas law, theft of a firearm is generally classified as a state jail felony. This is a big deal. It instantly elevates the crime out of local county jail territory and pushes it straight into the state penal system.
Let's look at what a state jail felony actually means in terms of time, because the timeline is pretty daunting. Obviously, if you aren't convicted, you're looking at 0 days. But if you are, the mandatory minimum sentence is 180 days in a state jail facility, half a year, and the maximum stretches all the way up to 2 full years. That's up to 24 months of your life gone.
And the consequences aren't just about a loss of freedom either. There is a massive financial burden. A conviction can carry a maximum financial penalty of up to $10,000 in fines.
But honestly, perhaps the most damaging penalty of all isn't the jail time or even that 10 grand fine. It's this, a permanent criminal record. We have to remember that a felony charge leaves a lasting, life-altering mark. It impacts your ability to get a job, lock down housing, secure loans, and even exercise your own Second Amendment rights in the future.
Let's pivot now to the empowerment phase. Section 3, your legal rights explained.
Think about the fundamental balance of our justice system. On one side, you have the prosecution's burden. The state literally has to prove every single element of their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a heavy, heavy burden to carry. On the other side, you have your defense rights. You have the absolute right to challenge their allegations, review the evidence they claim to have, and force them to meet that incredibly high burden of proof. They have to prove your guilt. You do not have to prove your innocence.
Let's clearly lay out your core rights if you're ever accused. First, you have the right to remain silent. Seriously, you do not have to talk to the police or try to explain yourself. Second, you have the right to consult an attorney. Third, you can challenge the allegations made against you. And fourth, you have the right to legally contest any evidence the state tries to use. I want to slow down for a second and just let the gravity of this sink in. These are your absolute rights, guaranteed by law. Use them.
All right, Section 4, building a legal defense.
Every single case is totally unique, but there are some common, highly effective ways cases get defended, based on the circumstances. A strong defense might point to a complete lack of criminal intent. Maybe it was just a genuine mistake. It could involve mistaken identity. Sometimes there are actual documented ownership disputes over the firearm. Maybe you had the gun but had absolutely zero knowledge that it was stolen. Or the defense might just focus entirely on how the police got their evidence, challenging illegal searches or seizures.
So how does a qualified attorney build that kind of strategy? Well, it's a systematic process. First, they look at the allegations to understand the exact charges and facts. Then, they scrutinize the evidence, zeroing in on exactly how it was obtained. They review witnesses, testing their statements and credibility. They dig into ownership, looking for any history of disputes. And, finally, they pull all of this together to form legal defenses, uniquely tailored to your specific situation.
Which brings us to Section 5, Next Steps and Action Plan.
If you are facing a firearm theft allegation, here are 3 critical, immediate steps you need to take to protect yourself. Step 1. Avoid discussing the case unnecessarily. Do not post on social media, don't vent to friends, and absolutely do not talk to the police without counsel. Anything you say can be used against you. Step 2. Speak with a criminal defense attorney immediately. Professional guidance is the only way to truly grasp your options. Step 3. Preserve relevant information. Keep any documents, texts, emails, anything that might be important to your defense safely stored away.
I really want to highlight this incredibly empowering quote straight from our source material. A firearm theft accusation does not mean you should assume the outcome. Getting an accusation is terrifying, no doubt about it, but it is just the beginning of the process. You have agency here. Getting informed about your rights early on is how you take control and make strategic decisions.
And that brings us to our final takeaway. Facing a firearm theft charge in Texas is daunting, and the consequences are no joke. But understanding the charges and your rights is the absolute first step. If you need a consultation or just want to learn more about navigating these complex legal waters, you can reach out to criminal defense attorney George Napier. You can find him on Twitter at @GeorgeNapier or on Facebook at george.a.napier. Remember this, know the law, know your rights, understand your legal options, because when the full weight of the state comes down on you, your knowledge is your only shield. Will yours be strong enough to protect your future? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and stay informed out there.